but I'm going to talk this morning about how to build and retain a data science team. Thanks very much for having me. My name is Barbara Stevens. I'm recently retired as the Chief of Data Science at CIA, and I'm going to talk to you about kind of what I learned in that role. I wanted to start by giving you a few comments. Here's the agenda, by the way. I'm going to talk about how to recruit the right team, how to retain your team once you've hired them, and a few thoughts about what to think about now that we're in this COVID situation as well. What I wanted to say about that is that while, compensation, training, and employee benefits are important, having a safe workplace is super important where people feel valued and they can see the value of their work. So the worst possible thing that you can do right now is to have your data science workforce feel disengaged. So my suggestion here is that you need to work with them and trust them. A little understanding now is going to go a long way in the future in terms of loyalty and productivity and so forth. So the more understanding you are about the situation today, the more likely they're going to want to repay you with some extra productivity in the future. And I think it's well known, but there was a recent study done that shows that 56% of employees who don't feel sufficiently engaged are going to look for another job. And you need to think about these even when your workforce is working remotely. So look for ways to have your team feel virtually connected. Now getting to data science and specifically, Financial Times recently published an article that said data scientists spend 1 to 2 hours a week looking for a new job. And why is that? Well, the reason is because if your expectations don't meet reality, then we as data scientists are going to want to change the work that we are doing to make it feel like it's really the most important work that we could be doing. So, so a couple things that you need to think about. I'm going to get the next slide up. And I'm going to talk about some things I think you need to think about before you actually talk about recruiting and hiring. And that is namely several things that are critical. For example, for your company, do you have a mission that data scientists can grab onto? I particularly like a couple of ones that I'm going to share with you. For example, Microsoft, and I'm not advertising for Microsoft, believe me, but the mission of Microsoft specifically says, our mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. That's a mission that folks can really sign on to, I think. And if you look at my previous organization, CIA, the mission there is to preempt threats and further U.S. security objectives by collecting information that matters and producing objective all-source intelligence analysis. So really, really think about your mission. Do you have something that can grab folks? Because if you get people to join your company just based on paying the highest salary, it's unlikely to keep them there. Secondly, what's most important is think about what kind of skills do you need. Not all data scientists are the same, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but do you need specific skills that are more software engineering? Do you need modeling skills? Do you really need the high-end machine learning, natural language processing skills? Think about that, because you're going to want to hire the data science skills that you really need. Third, is your data accessible? There's nothing more frustrating to new employees or even older employees than not being able to access the data that they have to answer your questions. So think about whether you need to set up a data management system before you really get into hiring data scientists, because the data scientists are not going to be happy with being the ones to set up your data management system. And finally here, and really importantly, do you have a compute environment? Do you have an IT environment that will work for data scientists in this day and age? And it's not difficult, thanks to the many cloud providers, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, etc. And my personal opinion is that on-prem solutions are going away of the past. The argument that I continue to hear for people needing them is data security, but I've got a hard time believing that any one company is better at security than large cloud providers. So seriously recommend that you think about those 4 things, because if you don't have that, your hiring is not going to, you're not going to be able to retain and hire the right people. Okay, so let's talk about the actual hiring process. How do you get the right team? First of all, you've got to hire people that have a desire to work in your specific business. Like I mentioned earlier, have a mission that they can grab onto. If you're attracting them solely based on salary, we know that's a poor retention tool. And studies have shown that mission-driven workers are 54% more likely to stay for 5 years at a company and 30% more likely to grow into high performers than those who arrive only with their paycheck as a motivator. So we really want to get people who are bought into our particular mission. Secondly, as I said, make sure that you hire people with the right skills, or you have to be willing to train for the skills that you want. And by that I mean, with more than hundreds, and literally hundreds of data science programs in the country, some certificates, some degrees, some rigorous and some not. How do you identify whether an applicant has the actual skills that you need? I think that's very hard, to be honest with you, and it depends a lot on how you do your interview process as to whether or not you can discern the skills. Let me tell you what I mean by that. For example, my former organization tends to interview based on soft skills. Do you work well on a team? Do you understand your strengths and weaknesses? Do you learn from your mistakes? Those are important skills, but if you don't have the actual data science skills, you can't succeed at the job. Some organizations give formal tests as a prerequisite. For example, the National Security Agency gives a data science test before people come in, and they have to pass it before they get to the next stage of the interview. I think that's a great way to go, but the problem is that you need to have enough savvy people on your staff to first create the test and then make sure that it's measuring the right things. So if you don't already have a team of data scientists, that could be tricky. And I know I'm preaching again to the choir when I say that many managers don't know what a data scientist can do, and they're treating the data scientist as the person who knows everything about IT, data, networking, etc. And this requires a lot of data scientists to become data engineers. And by that, I mean, when I say data engineer, I mean folks who transform messy data into a useful format for data analysis. So I'm not saying soft skills aren't important, but I do think that hard skills are equally important. Now, depending on what you want your data scientist to do, sometimes the soft skills will outweigh the hard skills, right? But it's touch and go. Let me give you an example. One of our most talented data scientists went to an interview for a very choice job that he really hoped to get. And in the interview, he told his would-be boss why he disagreed with every part of her strategy. Now, there was no way in the world that she was going to hire him for that job. And he happens to be a very, very smart data scientist, but his intuition for how to present things is poor. Okay, so now, one more thing on salary. I think this is really important. A recent Harvard Business Review salaries concluded that actually in today's world, meaning is the new money, meaning 9 out of 10 people were willing to take a lower salary for more meaningful work. So back again to the mission of your company. Finally, in order not to lose your employees within the first 6 months, you need to have an onboarding plan. And I realize that small companies don't have the skill that large government don't have the leeway that large government organizations have. For example, the National Security Agency has one of the best onboarding programs I've ever seen. It's a 3-year-long program called the Data Science Development Program that provides hands-on learning in operational settings supporting intelligence and cyber analysts. Their data scientists are expected to work with analysts to find answers to questions by applying mathematical reasoning and scripting skills to extract meaning from the agency's large repository of data. This 3-year program builds an individual data science into much more of an expert and also knowing about the agency's data and the way they work. Okay. Now I put this slide in here because I think that, no matter what we do, we have a good mission, we recruit the right people, we think we've done the right thing. There's a little bit of secret sauce, right, in getting your folks to stay, and that surrounds the leader, the first line supervisor that you have. And that's the person that's really going to help build and get a good team. So don't ever forget the importance of training your leaders. Okay, so now you've got the data scientists on board. What's the plan to keep them happy and engaged? Well, first of all, have you thought about how to help them embrace the culture? This may not need to be a 3-year program, right? But you've got to figure out how you're going to get them understanding what the culture of your company is and how to fit in. Secondly, and well, maybe thirdly here on my chart, because I talked about the onboarding program already. But thirdly, and most importantly, is don't deploy them as singletons to various groups in your organization. There's nothing that caused our data scientists to quit more quickly than getting deployed as singletons. Because what happens, particularly for new data scientists, is they don't speak up when they're given things that aren't really data science tasks. And if they're given things that don't meet their expectations, they're not going to stay with your company. They need to have a support group around them with more senior folks to help them with their first projects and so on. So please don't deploy them as singletons. To keep your pipeline going, I strongly, strongly recommend that you think about some kind of college hire program. We've partnered with a couple of universities. One of my favorite is the University of North Carolina and Raleigh. They have the oldest master's degree in analytics program in the country called the Master of Advanced Analytics, run by a good friend of mine, Dr. Michael Rappa. And it's just an awesome program. It's a 10-month program, so it's not that long. You can go down and get involved in their projects throughout the year, and then get a good chance of hiring out of that program. So I strongly recommend you think about something like that. In addition, so if you're successful, right, you're successful in hiring them and keeping them for a while, you're going to have to think through a career development program for your data scientists. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's easy to think about how we're going to use junior data scientists when they come on board, but they're going to want to see a career progression opportunities. In fact, figuring out how to equitably place them once they come on board can be very tricky. And having an onboarding program will help because then there's no frenzy for grabbing talent as it comes in. Let me give you an example in my last organization. In 2012, there were very few folks who were called data scientists. In 2020, 8 years later, there are many of them. And in fact, there are so many that we need to have teams of data scientists. And who better to run a team than someone with data science skills? So we had to think about how to grow a technical cadre into skills, into a group that included people leadership skills. So the question is for you to think about is, do you have training available for your data scientists to continue to grow? We know the field is changing very rapidly. So you need to budget some substantial money for data scientists to remain current. Learn the latest machine learning techniques so that they can apply those to make your company the best possible. Do you have a mentoring program set up? If not, I strongly recommend it. And in fact, what we did was, again, because we didn't have enough technical managers to provide the data science mentoring, we set up a really cool peer mentoring program for data scientists. And then in addition to a mentoring program, what you should do is think about having a forum for them to collaborate and discuss their projects. And of course, I'm not going to go into the fact that you need to have your code in a repository that can be reviewed and so forth. Those are technical issues that you have to deal with. Important, but I'm not going to talk about them here. I thought I'd like to take the last few minutes I have to talk about this mentoring program that we set up because it was really ended up being an awesome thing for the data scientists. So as I said, we didn't have enough technical managers to serve as mentors for all the things that data scientists needed. So what we did was we set up this peer mentoring program. It was an optional 6-month program for any data scientist to join. What we did was we set them up in groups of 6 to 8 data scientists. We had 2 people leading the group, and we provided a little bit of support to them. We talked about how they could get going. We provided mentoring, facilitation. As managers, we helped these more senior data scientists lead the group. And we had them cover things such as Getting oriented. How do you think about switching jobs? What is travel like at our organization? What about soft tradecraft skills that you need to develop? And how do you pick and choose your data science skills? How do you work with other data scientists, particularly because we're a large organization and very spread out? So what we did was, as I said, we had 2 group leaders for every group and 7 to 9 members for the groups. We asked data scientists to participate in at least 3 group meetings over 6 months. We asked them to maintain confidentiality so that really they could ask any questions that they wanted in these groups, and it wasn't going to affect their performance appraisal or their supervisor's feeling about them or any of that. We asked for them to be candid about what worked and what didn't work, and to really be proactive and look for wins in this forum. For the group leaders, again, we also asked them to participate in at least 3 group meetings, to maintain confidentiality, to be candid to us as managers about what did and didn't work, and again, to be proactive. And as I said, we had overall mentoring facilitation for the leads that worked across the teams as resources. And how did we define success? Well, we defined success as the fact that the individual was learning and making connections among other data scientists, that they were as a group forming professional relationships, and as a total program helping build our cadre of data scientists and building processes that made our data scientists better as professionals and generally improved their quality of life. We got a really lot of good feedback from this. And in fact, here's one quote that I took away from it. One person said, I took away a lot of lessons about how to work with different offices, how to share code, how to document, how to partner with other disciplines and offices, how to manage projects, how to develop myself, how to seek out training opportunities, and how to leverage various technologies. When we asked them what was the most valuable part of the experience, we were told, the most valuable part of the mentoring experience for me was building relationships with other data scientists. Another person said, a chance to speak with data scientists on other teams about shared challenges. So in sum, I hope you found this useful and that you can take away some of these ideas to help your organization hire and retain the data scientists that you need. Thank you very much. And in summary, here are the items that I believe are important. And of course, realizing that you can try to ensure success, do all these things, and there still can be things to go wrong. But in my view, these are the most important things that'll get you on the right track. Thank you very much. It was nice being here today.